Okay. Let's try this again. I can see us! Okay, we're good. Hey, we are back. Alright.
Look at those ugly bastards.
Let's start from the top.
Nice.
Not really, we're not doing that. We're gonna jump right in. I don't care. People already hear the sounders anyway, it's fine. Oh,
Fix it in post.
Yeah, whatever. Alright, starting from the top, guys. Welcome back to Overwatch League Network, the podcast with Deadeye on all the latest Overwatch League news, information, and esports analysis. I'm your host, Emily Drunk, and tonight on episode 24, we go around the league discussing the latest Overwatch League news, look back at the spicy week of drama that was within the Overwatch League, and preview this week's games. But before we get into the news and introduce you to the co-hosts, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out in the chat tonight and any repeat listeners that we have. Of course, as always, I have a few friends here with me tonight to help break everything down. Up first, rocking the banana Reinhardt after losing a bet to my HND co-host, it's Spider. Spider, what's up, nerd?
Ooh, what's up, nerds? I had to fill in for Slambo since he's not here because he just straight up like moved out on us. I mean, he's moving into a new house, so hopefully he'll be back next week. But I had to fill in for him. I had a pretty good week in Overwatch. You know, I got to play my new account that I am basically forced to play because I was in a bet that I lost. So I'm playing a lot of Sombra, Mei, and Doomfist. Sombra's been fun. But Mei has been, still my go-to. I mean, Mei has been one of my go-to characters for a while. And the nice statistic for Mei is I'm level 14 on the account, and I've yet to die as Mei. So that's
nice.
It's going pretty good. But the Doomfist deaths more than make up for that, I'm sure. But as far as Overwatch League goes, it was, like you said, it was a spicy week. And I'm going to save all of my thoughts on that for the actual discussion. But how about you, man? How are you doing living the pro and the semi-pro nonstop Overwatch lifestyle?
Oh god, I don't want to. I don't want. I'll go more into that Wednesday. My days are all mixed up. It's been that kind of a week. Obviously I wasn't here last week because I was battling nausea. But I was here in spirit in the Twitch chat, trolling. You guys were threatening me to ban me from our own Twitch chat, which is whatever. But I mean, I did get a meme a little bit based off of the show notes. So, I mean, I guess today really the little blurb at the intro was just karma coming back to bite me in the ass. But that's all well and good. I mean, we are gonna continue the streak of having at least one snafu. So hopefully that will be it for tonight. But as you can tell, guys, like Slambo is not here. He is currently in the middle of a move. Or he's just not wanting me to yell at him, I don't know. One of the two. But joining us this week in Slambo's absence is the host of Fragging Out, Not Your Daddy's Overwatch podcast, and that is Kinder. Kinder, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Whoo, yeah, it's your boy Slambo 2.0. That's all I got to say. Look at this team. Good. We're going to do great.
As Slambo put it, we had a major upgrade. I'm glad that he actually clarified because I don't know if he was talking about you being on the show or if he was talking about his new house, but it turns out he was talking about both. So there is that.
I'm always an upgrade.
There you go. Well,
an upgrade from myself.
Well, hopefully with you being here and Slambo not being here, we will see an upgrade on people not breaking their monitors since he does have the most punchable face. So there is that. So there is some good of Slambo not being here tonight, so take that for what it is, but that's enough chit-chat. Let's go ahead and talk about what's been going on around the league in this week's Overwatch League news. So, first up, we're going to be talking about this team a lot, but let's talk about something that they did more on a positive note, and that was signing a new player. So we got two teams to talk about. We have two new sign-ins, one for the Dallas Fuel and the other for the London Spitfire. And, right now we're in the middle of that sign-in window. It's in full swing, so a lot of teams are looking to make some adjustments to their rosters. And the Spitfire have signed former Runaway tank player, Tizzy. He will serve as the team's backup main tank behind Jester. So, that was a role that was held by Fisher previously, and, we kind of... he's doing his own thing, and Gladiator's now playing full-time, and we'll talk about that later, but, yeah... Gladiators have definitely turned things around for the better, but Tizzy, he mainly plays Winston. He does play Reinhardt as his secondary tank. And then looking at the Dallas Fuel side, they signed OGE, who likely won't be starting until the start of the third stage. This is a former tank player for Conbox. There he played alongside fellow Overwatch League player Asher, who's, on the Gladiators. Also Architect, who is rumored to be signing with the San Francisco Shock. Not confirmed yet, but I'm sure we'll talk about that next week whenever it actually does come through. So, both tank sign-ins, and the Fuel, the tank line has been definitely a hot topic that we'll probably touch up on in our takeaways, but, looking at OGE, do you guys think that he is going to be coming in to serve as their new main tank alongside Mickey?
I look at this and see that they saw a gap that needed to be filled, and more so with more recent news. But there's also the rumor that they're looking to trade Coco and Taimu. So it seems to me like they're transitioning to a different tank line completely. Like it seems like they want to go OGE with Mickey and then maybe Siegel as an off tank. So that seems kind of strange to me. What I actually think is going to happen is I think they're going to pick up another Korean tank. Namely, I think the best one out there right now is Kaiser. And he's on a contenders team, but there's also AKM's former teammate in Nox. So I could see them picking up, a whole new tank line and maybe going OGE in one of those. Because that's really, you hit the nail on the head. That's really where they've struggled recently is their tank line, so much that they put Taimu in there. So I want to see how this plays out. Like you said, he's pretty much confirmed to not be until stage 3. So moving forward, I'm interested to see what Mickey does with Taimu, because at this point you can pretty much assume that we're going to see a lot of Taimu and not so much Coco, especially if this trade is true. But that really leaves a lot up in the air. And, I'm going to say this a lot tonight about the Fuel, but they're in a bad place right now as far as tanks, and almost the worst place that they've been all season, which is not a good place to be because they've been in a bad place in tanks all season. So, and as far as the London roster goes, I feel like they're just filling roster spots at this point so they can get back to internal scrims. They had Fisher and Gesture, and Fisher didn't want to play second fiddle, so they said, all right, we're going to bring somebody in who's fine with playing second fiddle. So they brought in, not really a downgrade, but someone who hasn't been proven as much. So I feel like that's all they're doing is they want that 12-man roster back.
Yeah, definitely, the importance of running those in-house scrims is definitely big, and, you talk about playing second fiddle, and this is coming from a player that constantly would finish in second place because he did play on the Runaway, and who knows, maybe this will be the time for one of the Runaway players to really break out here on the Dallas Fuel. That being said, as of right now, the future does seem pretty bleak for the Dallas Fuel, so hopefully this sign-in will be a step in the right direction so they can start to kind of right that ship, because it has been kind of a rocky week for Dallas Fuel, given all of the drama that did ensue, which we will definitely be talking about here. But, Kinder, anything else you want to kind of add on to this one? Are you looking forward to seeing some new tanks?
Oh, definitely. Like he was saying, I think Taimu is definitely in a good place where he's at. It's one of those things where you got to have a team dynamic, right? And in the early stages, Taimu was on fire. Absolutely on fire. It was amazing to watch. He was one of my favorite characters in the whole league to watch. One of his favorite players, not characters. And I think him having a main tank to support him, as he plays, I believe he plays Roadhog mostly. Or at least it did when I watched. I'm sorry if I fucking make a fool of myself. But if you can get that support behind Taimu, I think their tank line will be extremely strong. I think they'll break out a lot more, and that will help the entire team dynamic. It's kind of like pieces of the puzzle. One piece falls out, the entire thing falls apart. And I think that's right now the missing piece of the puzzle. So if they can get some good main tanks on there, if they can get the tank line spruced up where they need to be, I think Fuel will be back in the spotlight where they need to be.
And for the right reasons, not for the wrong ones.
Right.
All right. Well, that has not been the only adjustment we have seen. We have seen a lot of stuff kind of in the coaches' corner for the Overwatch League this week. So let's start out with one of the bigger ones, and this is looking at the Shanghai Dragons, who, a bit of a rough time still. Not winning a game yet so far. Might. I mean, I'll be honest, guys. The strength of schedule for the Dragons for the remainder of this stage is very, very bad. They're gonna have a hard time because they're facing some stiff competition. But U4 has stepped down as their head coach, so their assistant coach Khan is going to be acting as a stand-in coach. And U4, he was the head coach that was kind of at that center of controversy dating back to January, where he was fined by the organization for approaching contracted players without permission, or, kind of going through the correct channels when it comes to, trying to get more talent. And he was also guilty of sharing his account. So, we had heard, in the past that the Dragons had tapped the former Miraculous Youngster coach, RUI, to lead the team. That was going back to January as well, but we haven't really heard much since then. I do have an update on that, which I'll share when we talk about some other things with the Dragons. But, the Dragons being the internet darling of, Overwatch League, we're still waiting on the reinforcements. We do have an update on that as well. But, U4 stepping down is really, the start of them to be able to really at least make some improvements going forward. It was pretty clear that, the Dragons players were getting overworked. We saw that one match where, Dia was in tears. We kind of always keep going back to that, but you can just tell that, they're being overworked, they might not be getting enough sleep, and it's having, this really ill effect on them, and it's not really showing in the results based on the work that they are putting in. So hopefully with, U4 stepping down and kind of having a little bit lenient of a reign, it will, one, just be a better working environment for the players, but in turn it will also just make a healthier environment for them to really just put in a better effort moving forward.
Right. And I think that's the right call for them. They seem to always have a communication breakdown. They can start strong in a match and it just breaks down, and, as if you can't really tell being on the sidelines and just spectating like we are. But it's characteristic of coaching error or just general camaraderie failure. I mean, it's basically just the things that you see like in college football when a coach makes a bad call and then morale falls and then the coach gets nervous and he makes another bad call. It's the same kind of deal. It's like you guys are choking every time. And the more you choke, the more your morale as a team's just just crash and freaking burn, man. So I think that even if it's not, even if the new coach or if the secondary coach isn't better, I think the change will at least shake them up a little bit and be like, all right, we got a shot now. We can kind of clear our heads, get some new air in our lungs and try to move forward instead of just being like, I guess we'll try it again, guys. Here comes a long game.
I mean, they can't get statistically worse. I mean, they can't have a worse lose record. So honestly, I was surprised U4 lasted this long because, I mean, you had mentioned that, he was account sharing, promising spot to underage players or, players not in the league. In any other sport, if a coach is caught doing similar offenses, they would have been gone immediately. So and couple that with their on-field performance, I was surprised he lasted this long. So I think bringing in a new coaching staff with new players is the right direction for Shanghai. I don't expect an immediate turnaround because they kind of got okay there for a little while. Like they looked like they were improving, and then the last, I'd say 3 weeks has just been like straight down again. So now I can confidently say they are probably the only team that the Fuel can beat right now. So that's a low place to be.
That's a low blow.
Well, I mean, they did lose to the Shock and the Mayhem. So, I mean,
Right.
that only leaves the Dragons at that point.
Hey, you leave the mayhem out of this.
We'll talk about that later. But yeah, I think it's a good move. Whatever behind the scenes drama is done, hopefully this is a good step forward for Shanghai.
Yep. Now, taking a look at another team that we already talked about, being the London Spitfire, they actually parted ways with Bishop. So, Cloud9 dropped their, head coach for the Overwatch League, Bishop, and, he was really, like, the key to the formation of the Spitfires lineup, which, at the time had combined the GC Busan roster and the Kondu Panthera roster, and, that team went on to win Stage 1 of the Overwatch League. And, it's worth noting, like, they have other coaches. They still have J-Feel, who had coached Kondu. They still have Chonggun, who had coached GC Busan, so they will continue to serve as the coaches for this team. But really, like, the biggest takeaway for this is that the players on this roster had always referred to Bishop as their, and I'm going to use air quotes, assistant head coach, so take that for kind of what it is. That really kind of shows you the perspective that they had, or just the thought process they had about Bishop. But, like, Bishop, like, when you look at the players that he has coached, he does not have the best, like, track record when it comes to the people that he has coached. Like, really not that many people have liked to be under him, really, so I don't know, like, what the future is going to hold for Bishop, but I think, regardless of whatever success that London has had in the past, they have, at times, so far in Stage 2, kind of seemed like a step off. They haven't quite been as dominant, across the board so far in Stage 2. That's not to say that they're doing terrible, but they just haven't showed that, like, same success rate that they saw in Stage 1. So, it's really interesting. I'm curious to see how this adjustment is going to kind of shake things up, if they're going to keep trying to run, that Busan half, and, the main core of Kondu that has been doing really well, or if, things are gonna just kind of be the same. Maybe we'll keep seeing the Kondu squad come out and keep dominating, with Birdring and Prophet week after week, because, that seems to be the working formula for the Spitfire.
You can only take the rumors, with a grain of salt. It could be just personality clashes. It could be, general things. But I mean, you touched on a big point, and Bishop has actually been Cloud9's coach for almost a year now. He started as their coach, I believe, back in April of last year when it was still the NA squad, and it might have even been the original NA squad. I'd have to go back and look, but that's a long tenure for a coach on one team, and really long in the West, because Korea has always been big on the coaching scene, but the West, as far as esports, has never quite adopted that, and I never quite understood that, because every other sport has a coach, so why not esports? So I feel like he's still going to be a sought after coach, and I hope the Fuel pick him up, because I feel like we could use a strong Korean coach that nobody likes to put people in line. But yeah, I mean, who knows why they dropped him? I guess he just wasn't a good fit, and they have a good coaching staff, so I'm sure Bishop will find something.
Yeah, I feel like he will too. You're talking about Cloud9. One of their original coaches before they were Cloud9, Rafflegator. We actually had him on the show not too terribly long ago, and he was talking about how Cloud9 was and the whole coaching scene and everything. We got some insight on it, and I think he may go kind of the same route. Kind of do his own thing for a while, be a free agent, be a free coach, and kind of somewhat fade into obscurity, but then again not. Gator, he's not necessarily looking for anything. He's just kind of an advisor, almost more than a coach for a lot of teams. So I feel like that's the place he'll kind of go, because he doesn't seem, according to what everybody seems to be saying about it, doesn't seem like a great fit for actual coaching, better for advisement. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking that may be the route he kind of goes.
Alright, and one more coach update. We do know that Stoop has joined the Los Angeles Valiant and will serve as the team's coach of their B squad. So that will feature, the non-starter core of the Valiant. And, Stoop, he's been around the scene for quite some time, going back to really close beta days of Overwatch. He had previously played for Fnatic before he had moved on to coaching, where he served as the head coach for Mosaic Esports, who you can find right now competing in, contenders. Which we'll get you guys covered on all of that every Wednesday for the backup. But Valiant, they are looking to set up a B team to run internal scrims. So this is another team that's looking to get that 12-man roster. And, on the other side, like, some of their players haven't been scrimming at all, so it'd be nice for some of these players that haven't seen the play time to, actually play the game. That's kind of what they're getting paid to do, so yeah, that would be great. But really, like, we're looking at how, we've seen some adjustments for this starting lineup for the Valiants. They have Kareev, making that switch from support to a primary DPS, and, if you guys are unaware, he was a DPS main in the past, and then he, converted to support. So it's not like he's just all of a sudden like going to a new role. That's what he was good at prior. He was a former Widow trick, basically. But, looking at these other DPS on his lineup, you have Silk Thread, you have Grim Reality, and you have Agilities. So, we've heard some murmurs about, some of them maybe testing out the waters on some other roles, but, like, do you guys think that Agilities and Silk Thread are just bound to be on this B squad for the Valiant?
I mean,
yeah, I'm with
maybe.
You, man.
I mean, when you look at Kareev has been a monster recently. I mean, in stage 2, he's the third best Widow statistically for Widows that have played over 30 minutes. He's the fourth best 76 for the same amount of playtime. So that's pretty good for a guy that was stuck on Mercy last, stage. And being the B squad isn't necessarily a bad thing right now, because especially if it's ran in this way. This is what I like about the Valiant, and this is how I think all teams should run it. You should have an A squad with a specific coach and a B squad with a specific coach, so that way you can play each other. And you can scrim different styles because you have a coach there to advise you to say, okay, I want you guys to mimic, the Gladiator style, or I want, you guys to mimic, quad tank or whatever. And each team can play that, and you get a better picture of what each person is able to do. Whereas right now, teams that don't run this setup, you have people like Mendo, who hasn't scrimmed yet, based on internal reports, or you have people like Clockwork, who has scrimmed intermittently and then gets thrown into a game one week and is expected to perform at the same level as Linkser. I know I'm using a lot of Houston, but I know their internal setup a lot better than most teams. So I think this is good. I don't think Silk Thread and Agilities will be the B squad. I'd hate to say it, but I feel like Grim Reality will be, unless he shows some particular talent to a different role, just because they've already shown that they have such a high level of DPS on the team that you're really going to need to wow the coaches in a different role at this point. I mean, it's kind of like, New York's problem or San Francisco's problem. We have an abundance of DPS, but we need somebody who's not going to die every 3 minutes on support. So that's specific to Shock, not New York. But yeah, I mean, like I said, this is what I want to see more teams do. So I am fully in support of this B squad coaching.
Right, I think you're onto something there too. Like if you're most any other sport, you have like a first string, second string, things like that. And yeah, usually your best players go on first string, but they get tired or they get hurt or something happens, or even if you just go up against a team with like a quarterback or something that's just outplaying your guys, then you have to put in that second string. Is like, all right, you have a different skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And you will play better against this particular person, or this particular comp, whatever. So say T-Vic's popping off on Tracer or something like that. I'm using my Mayhem. So say T-Vic's popping off on Tracer or something like that, and your guys just can't deal with it. Throw in that second string. They got a whole different skill set. It's like, all right, we're going to play for a turtle comp right now, and fuck this Tracer.
Exactly.
So I think that's the best way, like you said, to play it, is have a first and second string, as opposed to just like, oh, you're the B team, get out of here. We might see you next year.
Development coach, that's what we used to call them. There was specific development coaches that would take a player and say, hey, you're pretty good at this, but you could be really good at this, so let's practice this. So I feel like that's
Right.
what the Valiant's doing.
Right. And it's always better to like specialize in a particular area instead of like trying to have a huge skill set. So if you have a team that is super, super freaking good at turtle comp, and then you have a completely different team that's super, super good at dive, you're not going to have your turtle comp team diving all the damn time. You're going to switch them out. Have that team for this and this team for that.
That hits pretty close to home as a Fuel fan.
Yeah, and really just having that extra coach for, the non-starters. Really, I mean, you can just look at it like this. Like, having it being like its own separate thing, one, you're going to be able to give those players just more attention to detail that, if you're having to coach 12 different players and you don't have the staff to support that, then obviously you're not going to be able to have that same, like, quality time and work to put in with each person on an individual level. And with a separate coach and staff, you can't do that here for the Valiant, which is a huge thing for them in the long run. But moving on, we do have an update on the Shanghai Dragons and their Korean reinforcements. This is going back a ways, but we do know that they did make some roster sign-ins. They picked up Sky, Giri, Fearless, and Otto. And, like we talked about Shanghai earlier, they have not won a game yet. They have a minus 49 map differential, which, yeah, it's not very great to look at. But what we do know is that these 4 players have visa interviews on March 15th, and they are expected to arrive in the United States before March 31st. And as I mentioned, kind of going back to coaches, RUI, the former MY coach, is expected to join the team around the same time frame as well. So, based on that time frame, it is very unlikely that we will see these new roster additions play during Stage 2, which ends on March 25th. But, we should expect them to see them in Stage 3, which gets started here on April 4th. So, Stage 2 might be, just the end of the dark times for Shanghai, and then we could start to see, those little improvements happening more and more as, Stage 3 progresses. But, regardless, like, reinforcements are on the way. They, like, across the board, these are some pretty significant upgrades for this team. And regardless of any sort of communication issues, having to switch between Mandarin and Korean, and basically having some of these players trying to learn 2 languages, since, all of these players are trying to learn English for interviews and all of that. Regardless of that, I feel like we are going to see the best yet to come for the Dragons, and I can't wait to see what these new additions are going to bring to this roster.
I mean, it's good news for the Dragons, right? I mean, any help is needed at this point. So it's sad that he won't be in Stage 2. But good. So here is my question to you guys. Do you just field the new players immediately? I mean, you can't lose statistically any more games. I mean, you can lose more matches, but your win-loss record's not going to get any worse. So what is it really hurting to just give them playtime at this point?
Right. And like we were talking about earlier, if nothing else, they need something to change, some kind of shake-up, some kind of anything. Just change something. Put me on the team. I think it won't be any different.
I would say if they're all coming in at the same time, I would absolutely put all 4 of them in together.
Yeah. Then they don't need to learn as much Chinese, because 4 of them are Korean. So it's more like the Chinese player just needs to learn a couple of Korean words at that point. So we'll see. I am glad that they are coming and we got more news on it. I'm just sad that it's taken this long because, this was kind of leaked at the beginning of Stage 2. So to go, 5 weeks or more while waiting for visas kind of stinks.
Yeah, but who knows, maybe once these new members of the roster do show up, maybe, Shanghai Dragons can get out of that 12 slot, at least in terms of, like, the Twitch bits for the Overwatch League, because, they're holding that down just as well as they are just overall stand-ins in the league so far. So I don't know. Maybe they will start to sell some more merchandise, too. Okay, so let's dive right into the spice. I mean, this has pretty much been the biggest news of the past week, and really, I mean, it's been one of the more drama-filled weeks for the league, just overall, I would say. So, we do have a follow-up to what we're going to talk about first, but let's talk about what started this. So, this past week. There's been a lot of discussion amongst the community, and on Friday, the Overwatch League had handed out some disciplinary actions to some of its players. So Tyron, the coach of the Houston Outlaws, he had received a formal warning for posting an offensive meme on his Twitter page. Tyron had released an apology shortly thereafter when this had happened, and had made a donation to the Hiroshima Peace Culture Foundation following the tweet that he made. Silk Thread from, LA Valiant, their DPS player, was fined $1,000 for account sharing. And then XQC, tank player for Dallas Fuel, was suspended 4 matches effective March 12th and fined $4,000. And this next part is really, I think, the part of this that really is throwing people off, because this has sparked like an entire debate. And that is that XQC had repeatedly been using an emote in a racially disparaging manner on a league stream, on his personal stream, and on social media. And I know there's been a whole lot of chatter on Twitter, and a lot of people on both sides of the fence. And really, that seems to be the part that people are latching onto, and then, being like, oh, they're just using XQC as a scapegoat, yada yada yada. But people keep failing to realize the fact that one, XQC had already been fined and suspended for similar infractions in the past, so regardless of whatever emote usage he was using, that fine and that suspension was going to be at a higher degree just based off of his prior infractions anyway. But really, we do have a follow-up to the story, and that was that Dallas Fuel did release XQC from their roster. The sides had come to a mutual agreement to terminate his contract early. And, he released a statement. He said that Overwatch League was bittersweet, to say the least. You chase something for so long that you forget why you want it. And I remember seeing, clips from a stream. I usually don't watch XQC, but, if you go on a competitive Reddit, you are likely bound to see, 1,800 clips of XQC. That's just how the internet is. But he was joking on the stream that he was the most upset because he has to go out and buy new clothes since most of what he owns is branded with the Dallas Fuel logo. And he also made note that the league would have to manually approve his re-entry if he were to sign with another team. But really, the biggest takeaway out of all of this is the fact that going back to Watchpoint and seeing Dr. Doa doing the amputation, we do know that it was in fact a success, and XQC has been cut from the Dallas Fuel, and, we won't have to deal with maybe as much drama, but, that being said, that doesn't solve all of the Dallas Fuel issues that have been going on right now. So, Spider, being our resident Dallas Fuel fan, is this more of a sigh of relief moment for you, knowing that at least one of the rotten apples has been moved aside, basically?
Yes, but I will touch on that in a moment, because you left out one detail. You forgot that Taimu, another Dallas Fuel member, was also fined for using a racial slur on his stream. He was fined $1,000, and it brings up the question of consistency and stuff, and there's a whole nother debate that we can have with Taimu, but I do want to point out Taimu was also fined, and that was another big thing that we had talked about last week, so I did kind of want to follow up on that. Now, XQC, I am sad to say this, but I do feel like this was the best move for XQC and the league. He couldn't find the balance between, spicy streamer boy and professional. And that's really what he struggled with. And I mean, you had touched on it, that he had previous infractions, and then he had said some remarks to a couple of tanks in the league, even beyond the Mumo remarks. And then he also called the casters cancer, which is kind of what Doa was making fun of in that skit. So, he was trying to straddle that line between, like spicy personality and professional, but he had these previous infractions. And when you have those, you can't straddle the line. You have to be like good, 20 feet away from the line. Like I am, prim and proper until, some time passes. And XQC just couldn't do that. That's not who he is. And I feel like he is going to find a higher success rate, I guess better success streaming, because he's a very popular streamer. I mean, when they initially announced the fine, he streamed for a couple hours that night and said that he had cleared, the fine and, donations and subs in one night. So, is this really going to hurt him in the long run? Probably not. Do I think we'll see him back in the league? It's possible. I don't want to say no, but I don't think it's going to be soon, just because like what you said. So the way contracts in the league work is you are assigned by an organization. Like take Houston. Houston's organization is Optic, or Dallas's organization is Envious. You're assigned by that organization, but then the league has to approve your contract. I feel like maybe NRG would sign him for the Shock, but I don't think it will clear league approval right now. So while in the future maybe he, I don't want to say reforms, but cleans up his act a little bit, I feel like at that point we may see him. But touching on your first point, and I kind of wanted to round off on this, so that's why I saved it. I think this is the best move for Dallas. And I feel like the letter summed it up, and actually Custa, his teammate, support for Dallas Fuel, summed it up best in his reaction. He said, I love Felix as a person, but as a teammate, we never connected because he only played 6 games. He didn't scrim with us a lot because he was, and I'm paraphrasing at this point, but he didn't scrim a lot because he was always banned. So you couldn't build a team around him, and you have to build a team around a main tank. So his unreliability is what led to the Fuel releasing him. And I think that touches on it. If you can't rely on him as your main tank, you gotta go a different direction. So I think this is the best move for everybody involved. And I think Dallas will make out better. I think XQC will make out better. And I think the league in the long run will make out better.
Right. I think you hit the nail on the head there with talking about him being an entertainer more than a professional player. I mean, certain people are just made to entertain. Even if they are really good, you can't just take like Tim the Tap Man and throw him on an Overwatch League team. He's gonna get in trouble. He's gonna have fun. He's gonna do his thing because he's an entertainer. He's not a professional. It's not what he's built for.
Also get wrecked.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm just thinking of the first streamer I thought of. I love Tim the Tap Man. Well, I mean, I love watching XQC. He's great personality, a great, excellent stream. Obviously, he's a great player, good enough to be in the league. But at the same time, you're right. He's gonna be a lot more successful doing his own thing, entertaining people while being fucking crazy good. And there's certain people that's just how it's gonna be for him, and that's the way it should be. If you're getting paid all this money by a sponsor, then you're expected to live up to that sponsor's expectations. There's nothing wrong with that. This sponsor is paying you money to act the way that they want you to act. If you're at a job, you can't go to your job yelling racial slur, racial slur, racial slur all day long and expect them to keep you on board, But if you're doing your own thing, you've got your own business, you're making your own money, you can drop all the N-bombs you want, all the F-bombs you want. And as long as people are willing to pay you, you're fine. And that's right for certain people. It's not right for certain people. And I think he's in the entertainer camp.
Yeah, and it's been kind of interesting because, we look at Siegel. He was another, streamer turned pro player. And Siegel, he had stepped away from streaming to really focus on, the game and the league. XQC was trying to juggle all of it at once, and, that might have had an ill effect on him. Maybe he couldn't separate, playing, in the league to, what he does on his own time. But regardless, even when he wasn't playing, when he's on his stream, when he is part of that organization, you are representing not only the Dallas Fuel, but the Overwatch League whenever you're turning on that stream. And for him to have like really no filter, you know, yes, that is absolutely great from the Twitch perspective, but in terms of PR, that is absolutely terrible. So, like, I was absolutely not shocked to see, you know, XQC get in the boot. You know, I know a lot of us were kind of on the fence when he was first announced, like, well, we've seen how crazy he is on the stream. Like, how exactly is that going to work out in a team environment? And it didn't work. So, I'm glad that they are cutting the ties. And, you know, I think it's too early to say whether or not we will see XQC back in the Overwatch League, but you know, just looking at like how much money, you know, he's making out of, you know, donations, Twitch subs, I think we probably won't, just based on the fact that he doesn't need it. Like, he will make more than enough to keep himself afloat and have plenty of money just based off of his career as a Twitch streamer. So I don't think we'll see him back as much as, you know, how many teams right now do need a main tank. You know, if you can't rely on him and you don't know, you know, what he's going to say whenever he turns on the camera, you know, I don't think you can test him in terms of putting him on a roster when he's too much of a liability, no matter how good of a player he is. Because it was never a matter of his, you know, skills as a player. It was always just his personality and, you know, oh, what's XQC going to be up today? So maybe this will finally be, you know, the time where, you know, we light the candle, we put it to rest, we can move on and talk about better things. And what better thing to talk about than our community in this week's question of the week?
Nice segue.
Nailed it.
Got it. Okay, so guys, this week we'd ask you which Overwatch hero that's not currently in the meta would you like to see being played more in the Overwatch League, and how would that character shake up the meta? Of course, you know, we have some, you know, responses from our Twitter, as well as a ton from our Discord, but Kinder, you're our guest. Which Overwatch hero would you like to see be brought into the meta for the Overwatch League?
I've actually spent quite a while, most of last season and all the beginning of this season, maining Sombra, and I have fallen in love with Sombra. I mean, even the buffs are amazing, and I really want to see a lot of her new play style that's not just specifically ult reliant. I want to see a lot more Sombra in the game and see how the pros really use her to her maximum effect without relying on let's lose this, you know, and just health pack hacking. So I would really like to see her. And the other one I really want to see back is I want to see more Ryan. I want more heavy tank action. I want some hammers. I want the handle getting jammed up someone's butt. You know, I want the freaking hardcore action Reinhardt. That's what I miss.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see some Sombra, you can go watch Contenders, but you might not like the outcome as much as you would expect, because the teams that run more Sombra tend to lose more.
It feels bad, man.
So we'll see how it does when that patch hits the actual Overwatch League. But right now, it seems like a lot of the pros kind of overblew how OP she was. But my response is actually the first Twitter response by @RyanLimkey, and it's May. You can punish overextending and poor positioning is what he says. I agree. I just want to see more May because I play a lot of May. So I want to see her, and we thought we would see her on Hanamura, and instead she ends up on freaking King's Row. So like she flew across the pond and ended up in King's Row. So I just want to see more May. I want to see those nasty right clicks. I want to see her freezing Genji's mid dash and then just popping him in the head. But we also had another Twitter response from @VeryUnorthodox. They say Reaper, actually. I would appreciate him being used for more than just a ambulance killer. And I'd like to see that too. I like Reaper. But he is very tailored in his kit, so I feel like you have to run tanks for him to be really viable. Although we have seen him more on Volskaya recently, so you know, maybe you'll get your wish.
Yeah, I mean, Reaper right now is not only been, you know, the Sambulance killer. I mean, for those that don't know that terminology, Sambulance is basically like that, you know, triple quad tank with the Moira and Lucio, you know, whatever they end up doing. But we have seen Reaper kind of used as a Sombra counter as well, you know, paired with the McCree. You know, you basically camp that, you know, health pack that they're trying to feed off of, and then, you know, you either just stand up right on top of it, or you have the flash main at the ready, and then, you you don't have to deal with that. So, it's not just from a Slambulance perspective that we are seeing Reaper, but yes, absolutely, I would love to see more Reaper being played in the Overwatch League, because it doesn't happen enough, and most of the times it's on Assault maps. But looking at our Discord responses, we got a ton. Not Rob says, probably Ana and Doomfist, especially if 3 or 4 tank teams become more prevalent. We kind of talked about that. Like, we were expecting to see more of that Slambulance type setup from a lot of these teams, and lo and behold, it's been mostly dive compositions coming out from these teams, so Ana really hasn't been seeing a whole lot of play, and Doomfist, he's seeing more of that last-minute stall play, unless you're Hydration. Hydration can play him, like really any other time. He's one of the few. Spider, as you said May because it's May, and you love May. Straight into the point. Edinar says Reaper and Orisa need more play. Lazen Bob from Watchpoint Radio. Let's see. Prepare to attack. I'll
He's
recap.
got like 10 now.
Which is, I think they're live right now. They're interviewing Harsha from San Francisco Shock today.
Are they live right now?
Yeah, he says, duh!
I gotta go.
Torb! I want the hammer and the nail. I think Torb would need tweaking before he could get into the real meta. He's oppressive at low levels and close to worthless at high levels. Yeah, I can see that.
Just like me.
Same though.
That's a fair point. Fox says, I would like to see Sim being run so I can see how pros decide to use her. Well,
They have. They don't.
Okay, so you might be wondering, well, gee, Totem, why don't we ever see Symmetra in the Overwatch League? And it is very simple. 1, Winston is in the meta and has been since day 1 of the Overwatch League. And, you could put up your sentry turrets, and they're just going to be deleted immediately. I mean, there's no effective use of those sim turrets. No matter where you put them, they're just going to get shut down immediately, and then, you're just going to get steamrolled at that point. So that's why you don't see Symmetra. Shrug also picks Symmetra, and Torbjorn, he says, they're ridiculed as bad heroes in higher play, but it helps seeing how good or bad they'd be. Fair point, but again, like, I don't think we'll see a point where either of them are going to be in the meta. I'm sorry. Maybe it's more of a problem of, the defense category or just more defense-oriented heroes. I don't know, maybe they need to kind of, like, relook back at that. Mackie says Hanzo. Mullenfield says, I love the skill cap required to play Ana, and would love to see some minor changes to her to make her more competitive in the Overwatch League meta. I figured with the advent of Triple Tank in Stage 2, we'd be seeing more Biotic Grenade, and, the Biotic Grenade potency is really, one of the best things about her toolkit, other than being able to, kind of shut down Genji blades, when they're getting, pulled out of the sheath. It's always good too, but, not everyone can be Ryoshe Han, so I'm sorry. And even he's really not even playing Ana all that much. Invictus says McCree and Ana. Blizz should give McCree his damage back. If not, infan the hammer, then buff his long shots back. Then McCree can counter Tracer and... Hold on. McCree already counters Tracer.
Yeah.
That is what it is. And force changes to the meta that way. For Ana, they should give Nano speed boost again. It was OP in the Beyblade meta, but in Dive, the speed won't change much, but it will make her ult powerful enough that you can justify it over survivability. If we see teams really stacking tanks more predictively, we may see her, but her biotic to anti-heal about the survivability, but you lose is a rough pill.
I have a lot of thoughts on this one. McCree already counters Tracer. You don't want to buff Fan the Hammer because that was awful. You don't want to give him more damage on his long range because then he can be nano boosted, or not nano boosted, but just mercy boosted or Zen Discord and one shot people. If you give Ana her speed back, it's just going to go back to the Beyblade meta because the people in the Beyblade meta haven't changed. I mean, Roadhog has changed a little bit, but Reaper hasn't seen any change except for buffs. So, I mean, I'd like to see more McCree and Ana, but I don't think these are the reasons.
I don't know though. I could kind of see the Ana Nano Boost getting the speed back, because you think back to Beyblade meta, it was always you Nano Rhine or you Nano Reaper. He also had Nano Genji, but that's still kind of done anyway when it is done. And both Rhine and Reaper are out of meta right now. That would possibly bring them back into kind of a playable place without actually changing them that much. It would bring back Anna, it would bring back Reaper, and it would bring back Ryan, and not necessarily kill everybody else. So that would be an interesting change to see. I don't know if it'd be enough to completely change the meta, but it would definitely change, how they think about team comps and everything. Maybe give some more options.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Nano Boost right now, it's usually either used for Winston because of how ridiculous, the pulse cannon is with a left click. We do still see Nano Blade on occasion, and more recently, it's been on the Grandma goggles for Soldier 76 with the visor. And I don't even want to. Yeah, I mean that's the terminology. That's what it has been since day one. I will continue to use that. But I don't know. Like I think there's already like a decent enough amount of choices, and hey, we've even seen Nano boosted Zenyatta with Jonak, so there is that too. I mean, he is the third DPS anyway. You might as well just give him Nano Boost because he'll make use of
it. Yeah, the other ones are second fiddle to him usually.
Death is whimsical today.
Absolutely. Juggernaut says, I'm a Reinhardt main. You should know that by now, Jug. We already know that. I don't think he's out of the meta, but he's not as popular. And, most of that's map dependent, or if they're running triple tank for Slambulance. Repaired I-56 says, Sim. Swoop says, I'd say either Orisa or Reaper. Both ultimates are absolutely devastating, and Reaper would provide a great flanker, while Orisa is a great tank with good range. If their ults are synced, their entire enemy team could be wiped out in a matter of seconds. Since Orisa shoots her shield to a position, she could block shots she isn't close to save her teammates. So, guys, thank you so much for your answers for our community question. And, we got, a pretty decent variety of answers here. Looks like a lot of people are just wanting to see Symmetra, though. Will it actually happen outside of, the pre-game satanic rituals? I don't think so. But who knows? If Winston ever falls off, that will be probably the only time we will get to see Symmetra outside of any sort of, huge overhaul to her toolkit. But who knows? One day, keep making your signs. Maybe one day it will happen outside of Muma, just trolling the people. I don't know. But this will lead into our main discussion, which, of course, guys, every week, it's pretty much the same. We talk about the past week, preview the week that is to come. So, going through the results from Stage 2, Week 3 on Wednesday, we saw the Seoul Dynasty defeat the Shanghai Dragons 3-1. We saw the San Francisco Shock upset the Dallas Fuel 3-0. And then in the Battle of LA number 2, we saw the Gladiators sweep the Valiant 4-0. On Thursday, we saw Seoul Dynasty defeat Philadelphia Fusion 3-1. The Valiant defeated the Outlaws 4-0. And then the Uprising defeated the Dragons 4-0. On Friday, we saw the Spitfire sweep Boston Uprising 4-0. The Excelsior swept Philadelphia Fusion 4-0. And then the Florida Mayhem. They were so close. But the Outlaws won 3-2. That was a reverse sweep. Mayhem couldn't close that one out. But if you were a Mayhem fan, I got good news. They did pull off a win on Saturday, so there is that.
The Mayhem boys.
So on Saturday, we started things off with a juicy matchup between the Gladiators and the London Spitfire. Fisher going up against his former team. And I don't know if you guys saw the tweet from Fisher after this game, but I fucking died. It was the funniest thing. So the Spitfire, they lost, 3-1. Gladiators took it, so that was a huge win for the Gladiators, and Gladiators are definitely a team on the rise. The Excelsior swept the Shock 4-0, and then the final game was a reverse sweep for the Florida Mayhem as they defeated the Dallas Fuel 3-2. So the Mayhem Kinder, they got reverse swept, and then they pulled off a reverse sweep. And man, I mean, I'll be honest, I did not think they would pull it through, but I was so happy to see it, regardless of whatever's going on with Dallas. For them to, get reverse swept, and then to do it themselves, I think, just speaks a lot of their character because, regardless of, their current record, they always come out with a smile on their faces. They are always ready to play, and, you can't always say that about some of these other teams in the Overwatch League so far.
Right. That's the reason I kind of latched onto the Mayhem from the very beginning. Is the entire team is just fun. They're so much freaking fun. I'm in their Discord and it's just constantly bring the Mayhem, McDonald's memes here and there. Like half their freaking Discord emotes are freaking Pepe's with like Mayhem stuff on. It's hilarious. They're just so much fun and they don't give a shit what anybody else thinks. They're there to bring the Mayhem. I mean, literally, and I freaking love it. And I'm so glad to see them, doing something because they never really play badly. They just kind of get a rough break or like get outplayed on something. I mean, they've had a couple of rough games, but it's not been like Shanghai style, where it just falls the hell apart. And you're just like, we got outplayed, boys. Feels bad, man. Here's a Mayhem Pepe for you.
So this week in particular, we'll talk about our rankings after we hit our discussion points, but our rankings, honestly, this week have seen a ton of movement, and part of that is just based on, some of these teams have really started to falter and kind of hit a rough patch, and the field has been kind of like blown wide open. The Gladiators, they took down, the Spitfire, the Fusion struggled against the top teams. Houston has been dealing with tracer issues week after week, so, that's always been one of the red marks on that team. So really, like, right now, who is the team to beat in the West? Like, we keep seeing some inconsistencies on some sides. Some teams have looked good one week and terrible another week. The Gladiators seem to be playing the best that they have been, so are the Gladiators the team to beat right now in terms of the US teams? What's going on right now?
I'm going to say all the Western teams are the team to beat, with the exception of the Fuel right now, because they're the team you're going to beat. But, it's like you said, every week, a new Western team shows us a new look. Like, basically what we expected out of all these teams, they're finally showing up. Like, the Gladiators showed up this week, or, the Valiant with Kareev or showed up one week. It's kind of, like you said, it's a toss-up. So I feel like everywhere is, or not everywhere, but every team is in contention right now, with the exception of the Fuel and maybe the Shock. But I feel like the Shock are going to take a big upswing if some of these signings are true and, you have players aging in. So I feel like the Shock are going to become a better team in Stage 3 as well. So overall, it's everybody, and that's exciting to me because we wanted an undefinable middle of the pack, and the bigger that middle of the pack technically is, the better the league's going to be. Because we do our pick'ems every week, and I pick the wrong teams every week, but I want more people to pick the wrong teams for the right reasons. Like, there have been these matches that were like, oh yeah, the Valiant are gonna sweep the Gladiators in Battle for LA2, and then the Gladiators just show up and wreck them. And that's what I want to see more teams do. I want to see Boston come in and wreck New York one week, just because we're like, oh, when did Boston get their legs back? And I feel like we're getting closer to that point.
Well, to answer that question, that will happen whenever they learn to play Lucio. I mean, I'll touch up on that later. But, Boston, this was a team that played Dive really good in Stage 1, but that was with Mercy. Cullix was really great on Mercy. He hasn't quite hit that same level of consistency with the Lucio, but, you talked about Gladiators, and the addition of Fisher, that was substantial. We all thought that, but we didn't expect to see such a quick turnaround for them, and they've been playing the best Overwatch that they have so far in the league. But, based off of Fisher's signing, we've now seen their DPS really start to show up. You have Asher, Surefour, and Hydration, and they have been able to play this hyper-aggressive style, following right behind Fisher. And now all of a sudden, the Gladiators look like a completely different team. And then you look at, the Fusion, who started off great in Stage 2. And then they dropped 3 maps of the Dynasty. They dropped 3 maps to New York Excelsior, who, obviously they're the top 2 teams in the league right now. But, kind of going back to, something to note is that, like, they opted to play EQO in both of those series over Shadowburn. So, there's been, like, this huge debate. Which Genji are we going to start over the other? Who has the best stats? Who's playing better at the moment? And they keep kind of, like, going back and forth. And EQO, he's played great, but he just hasn't been having the same effect against, the top competition, which is kind of to be expected. But, Philly was, like, at least going into the week, we felt like they were the strongest team out of the West, and now it's just kind of up in the air. And then you have the Valiants, they look good one week, they look bad another week. They always have Soon trying to backcap, which is always entertaining, but the Gladiators, like, soundly just handed them their ass in that series, so I don't know, man. Like, it's been a crazy week, like, across the board, and I think, like, regardless of what else is going, like, on behind the scenes, I think we're getting to the point now where we do get the terminology of any given Sunday, because we have seen these upsets happen. The Mayhem picked up their second win, and, sooner or later, the Dragons are to get the first win. Maybe they can build some momentum off of that, but really, like, who's going to be the one to separate from the pack? I don't know, but it is very intriguing to watch, and it's really anyone's to take right now. I guess it all will just depend on if the Gladiators can continue to, keep rolling and improving with Fisher, on that front line for that team. So, earlier we mentioned that on Overwatch League Recap, they were interviewing Harsha from, coach from the Shock, and, Sinatra's turning 18, Mr. 150k turns 18 on March 18th, and will be eligible to play for the Shock starting March 21st. That is not, this week, that is the week after. So, looking at Sinatra, he is their Tracer specialist. We have seen him flex onto Zarya in the past whenever it's been needed. But Dante kind of being this unsung hero for the Shock. My question to you guys is, do you bench Dante in favor of playing your Golden Goose Sinatra, regardless of how good Dante has been doing here as of late? Especially when you consider how consistent he has been. Like, do you pick Sinatra over Dante, or is there room to have both of them right now?
I mean, right out the gate, I wouldn't play Sinatra, but I don't know how much they've been scrimming with him. So Dante has kind of shown over the last couple of weeks that he's been playing a lot better. He's basically been popping off the last couple of weeks, and maybe that's in anticipation of Sinatra gunning for his job. But I think in the long term, why not play them both? I mean, you've seen it work in Seoul. Seoul has two really good Tracer players. Why not play them both if they have different styles, which we haven't seen Sinatra play in a while. It's very possible because every Tracer kind of has its own style. Just play them both based on what type of team you're playing against. But right out at the gate, I feel like maybe they should put him in for a game or something. But I would stick with Dante. But then again, I don't know how much he's been scrimming. If he's actively been scrimming with the team on a regular basis, then I see no reason not to, because before the Overwatch League started, if you asked me who the better Tracer was, Sinatra or Dante, I would have picked Sinatra. So, we'll see.
Yeah, just to note, Blazemop did say that they have been scrimming with Super and Sinatra, so he has been seeing some play with the team.
Yeah, then, if he's actively been scrimming, then, play him and see what he can do. And if not, you at least know what Dante is capable of on the stage.
I don't know. Like, Dante's just really been pulling out all the stops. So I'm torn on this one. Like, I don't want to see Dante, kind of getting put on the back burner. And I have this growing concern that, since, they did pay, a good amount of money for Sinatra for that contract. Now, granted, take that for what it is, because we haven't really heard what a lot of the contracts are for the Overwatch League. But I'm worried, like, Dante might be put into the same position as IDDQD, who hasn't been seeing any sort of play either, so I'm torn. But I think regardless, if Dante sticks with the Shock, if he doesn't, there are a lot of teams out there that could use a Tracer specialist, so regardless of if he's playing or not, or if he finds a new home, being a tracer specialist, he will always be able to find a team.
Right. And I mean, you guys pretty much covered all the bases there. I mean, if they do have two decent tracers, fill one role in the other, have different styles and everything. Like you said, I mean, he's got a good Zarya on him too. So just why not play them both? Why not have them both? The bigger roster can't necessarily hurt, as long as you know how to play your players. And it's just all depend on how your coach decides to do things. So if they got a good coach, then they'll be fine.
Well, if there is one thing that you can count on with Sinatra, and I promise you this is going to happen. Sinatra is going to come into the league, he's going to play Tracer, he's going to lose the Tracer duel due to Harmony Orbs, and then he's going to complain. It's going to happen. It's going to happen just like it did in the World Cup. Sabiolbi is going to crap on him whenever, the Shock face the Excelsior, and then we're never going to hear the end of it, and I could keep bringing it up. And I will always revert to that because I laugh so hard just thinking about it.
Maybe Saiobi will stop picking on Jake then, because he'll have a new punching bag.
Could be. Alright. Well, we talked a little bit about the Fusion earlier, and really, one of the takeaways for me this week was, okay, what sort of adjustments do we need to see from Philadelphia in order for them to beat some of these top teams? As I mentioned, they started strong, only to kind of falter. Yeah.
I don't know.
I
don't know what that means.
You
What's a giggle box?
It sounds dirty.
Get him back on track. Yeah, the Fusion.
The old slap and tickle.
Do we continue to run EQO over Shadowburn? I mean, EQO, he's had some pretty good early success, but he quite hasn't been able to match up against the elite teams in the league so far. We did see him get shut down quite a bit with his Dragon Blade against Excelsior and the Dragons, and a lot of that was just because, that space to work with was really taken away from him. We saw the Lucio boops coming out, separating the Genji from the Lucio, and then we don't quite see the same effect. So, I don't know. It seems like, though, at the end of the day for the Fusion, this is a team that plays better the more aggressive the tank play is. But that's kind of a double-edged sword for the Fusion, because Fraggy is usually the one that gets picked off first in the team fights, more times than not. And, that doesn't always help out the team, because, too many times they have to kind of, regroup at that point, because you can't always 100% rely on your DPS at all times to really be able to, turn the stage of the fight at that point.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's their tank play. They need to rein Fraggy in while keeping him aggressive. That's the trick that he needs to get. He needs to get that Muma or that Miro sense where you can get in and get out while still remaining aggressive. Because, I mean, like you said, he dies more often than not. He's the first death in team fights in 10% of the team fights, which is a lot. I mean, he is up there in terms of first deaths, but Poco's not much better. I mean, when you think about divas, Poco's up there too. I mean, there's kind of the outlier of the Zushu of Shanghai. He is the worst, and then everybody's kind of further down from him. But Poco's pretty close to that top deaths too, and I feel like they need to rein in their tank play, but still remain aggressive, because like you said, they do better when they're aggressive. So the tanks need to figure out that line of being aggressive without throwing every fight. And that's what the Fusion has done. And I feel like they need to give more time with EQO. They played him at the beginning of the stage, and then they played him against, two top tier teams, and it didn't go very well. Well, he hasn't played on stage for 3 weeks. And no matter how much you scrim, that's not going to help. So I feel like they need to give more playtime to EQO if they want to play this aggressive style, and clean up their tank line. And I feel like the Fusion could be a top 3 team. Their support line with Boombox especially has shown that he could be up there in that conversation with Jonak easily for the way he gets kills. The tanks just need to stay alive long enough to capitalize on those kills. So I hope the Fusion clean it up. But I'm not holding my breath.
They will.
All right. So really, the last takeaway that we need to talk about is going back to the fuel. Okay, so this is a team right now, and they've pretty much openly talked about this. The players included. This is a team that, as of right this moment, has no identity. AKM has essentially been one-tricking on the Soldier 76, which is, I think, okay to a degree based on how damn good he is on 76. His stats are top of the line. I mean, I'm not going to deny him that. But what's happening is Mickey has been kind of put in this really odd position where he's started to struggle because he doesn't know what decision to make when it comes to peel in to protect the backline with AKM, or whether or not he needs to, support Taimu, who is basically learning how to play Winston at this point, and he just keeps, getting jerked around all over the place, and he doesn't really quite know when to turn that aggression up. So, there seems to be, a lot of, not knowing when to be going all in and when to kind of, rein back a little bit. And, it shows, because a lot of times Mickey is just kind of out of position, or, Tamu just gets picked off, or AKM is under too much pressure. And, Mickey's just kind of stuck in the middle right now. So, at this point, where is Dallas supposed to go from here? Do they keep running Taimu? Do they bring in OGE as soon as he's able to play in Stage 3? Because, I mean, right now, the fuel, on paper seems to be kind of unraveling. And Spider, I know you're going to have a lot of opinions on this one. Being the resident fuel fan, or Fool fan, I don't know which one. But, I mean, what do we do with Dallas at this point?
I mean, it's back to the drawing board at this point. We released XQC, as we talked about, and I kind of talked about it in that bit a little bit. But I feel like they need to build a new tank line around OGE and possibly sign another tank, like I had mentioned earlier. And like I said, you could build a Korean tank line because Kaiser is out there. There are other good Korean outlines, outliers that are escaping me right now. But there's also Nox. So there are a lot of good tanks out there. I think building around OGE and Mickey right now is not a good idea. Just because of what you said, I feel like Mickey's struggling with the new diva. We saw him always be really good at that, kind of passive protect your backline diva. And then when the fight was, essentially won, he was good at getting aggressive. He knew the time to get aggressive then, as now he hasn't quite hit that. Okay, I'm a brawler tank. I need to get in there. And he, like you said, he kind of falters a little bit. I think they need to look at their supports heavily, because this last weekend we saw the old duo of Harry and Chips, and it was not good. It was bad. I honestly think they should build around Custon and Harry, because both of those looked good when they played together, and kind of bring Chips in when you need an Ana, for those longer maps, maybe like Kings Row or something like that. So as far as supports go, that's the direction I would go. Now, as far as DPS goes, I feel like we are at a good spot right now. I feel like you have AKM, Rascal, and Effect. I feel like they just need to figure out where those pieces fit, and play them correctly. That is the important part. We shouldn't go a whole series with maps with verticality and not see Rascal on Genji. You can keep Taimu on the Roadhog. You can keep him as a specialist Widow, because AKM has been okay at Widow, but I feel like Taimu could do better if he gets back in the groove. And then you have Seagull as well as a specialist DPS. So I feel like they just need to start at that front line, build a new front line, and go from there. So I would take the rest of Stage 2, build your support line, figure out where the DPS pieces fit, and then when OGE comes in, along with him, sign a new tank and work on the front line. That's, honestly, at this point, that's where I think they have to go, because communication has proven to be bad. They've straight up said that there's internal communication problems. There's coaching problems, which a lot of people are throwing hate at Kai, but as a realist and as somebody who's played sports, I know it's not entirely the coach's fault if you're overridden by the players, but I feel like they need more help in the coaching area. I just think that you have to look at the team right now with the release of XQC and say, this is the turning point. This is where we go back to the drawing board. We throw out all the stuff that didn't work. We look at the stuff that did, we're basically against the Gladiators in Shanghai. So take that for what you will. But look at the stuff that worked and figure out where the pieces fit, because they have immensely talented players. They just need to get all this other crap out of the way. Okay, my rant's over.
It's like it's just like we were talking about at the beginning of the show. I mean, once you get the puzzle pieces for those tanks, in the place, I think everything else will kind of stick where it needs to be. Because, like you said, everybody's very talented. They've got a great roster. I mean, it seems like they have good coaching. It's just, there was that one or two pieces that are kind of, off center, not quite right. Things kind of falling apart a little bit. But, I think with the new tank coming in, and I think Taimu's just fine. I think Taimu can do his job given the opportunity. I don't think he's having a problem per se. And like you said, you got effect. I mean, all your DPS, all your support, everybody's really good. It's just once you got to get everything all together. Once you get that fit, yeah, I'm struggling for words here. We're on a podcast. I'm losing my vocabulary here, but you just put the Play-Doh in the ball and it's gonna work, man. You know what I mean? Just my opinion, man.
And eventually, you'll have some sort of sculpture out of that. Whether or not it's a good one, we don't know. But I mean, it's going to fit into place. It's just a matter of, is it the right place? We'll have to wait to see. That being said, though, based on how the field has been doing, like, it really shook up our power rankings. And, more recently, like, we started to, like, stop doing, like, the bottom 6, but I feel like this week, based on how much movement we have had in that middle of the pack, I feel like I have to go 1 through 12 this week. Only for this week, based on the fact that we have 7 of the 12 slots going up or down this week, which is a lot. More so than we've had in other weeks. So, coming in at number 1, our top-ranked team in Overwatch League Network, we have the Soul Dynasty, #Soulmates. Stay number 1. My other soulmate isn't here. I'll deal. Moving up a spot, in number 2, we have the New York Excelsior. London Spitfire dropped 1 spot to number 3. Gladiators, they catapulted. I mean, they shot up. This is probably the biggest move we've had yet in our power rankings. They moved up to number 4. Moving up 5 spots over their week 2 place in. 5th place stayed the same for Philadelphia Fusion. Los Angeles Valiant, again, came in at number 6. The Houston Outlaws dropped 3 and are ranked number 7. Boston Uprising dropped 1 and are ranked 8th. We have the Shock moving on up. This could be it. This could be the start of good things to come. They're moving up 1 to the 9 spot. The Field dropped 2 spots to the 10 spot. And guys, I'll tell you, that was actually based on a tiebreaker. The Shock had won, I don't know, one more game? Or one more map? Over the Field, so that was really close. But Florida Mayhem, staying at number 11 right now. But they that last week could be the week to turn things around for them based off of, that tenacity that we saw, pulling out the reverse sweep. After getting reverse swept, who knows? But yeah, I mean, everyone knows what the 12th seed is at this point.
Sad Jordan face.
Yeah, it's Shanghai, guys. I don't think that will come to a surprise. But stage 3. Mark my words, we will see them at least move up a spot. It's going to happen. I could feel it in my bones. It will happen. Just not yet. That being said, guys, let's go ahead and jump into our Week 4 preview. Slambo was supposed to be our left guy. He's not the right guy this week. He's not here. I'll fill in. So, starting off at 4 p.m. Pacific time, over on Wednesday, March 14th, we have the Boston Uprising taking on the Dallas Fuel. And, these are 2 teams that are kind of going into this game with recent struggles, sporting, a 2-4 record so far in Stage 2. And, as I mentioned earlier, Dive being so prominent in the meta, I've been kind of surprised by Boston's struggles, As I said, they were known as the Dive team at Stage 1, one of the better Dive teams in the league at that, but, the Lucio gameplay just hasn't quite been there for Kelix. But with everything going on with the fuel right now, it's really hard for me to know like how they're going to fare in this one, because on paper these two teams are fairly close, but I don't think the fuel tank synergy is there yet to really be able to really create the space that their DPS need. So I have the Boston Uprising taking this one 3-1. So, I think the fuel are going to struggle a little bit again this week. And then at 6 p.m. Pacific time, we have a Battle of the Koreans. I mean, it's New York Excelsior taking on the Seoul Dynasty and Spider. What do you have for this one? Who's taking this one home?
Well, since you just crapped on the fuel, I'm gonna say the this is Seoul's first tough match of stage 2. They're unbeaten, but they haven't played any of the top tier teams yet. Top 3 teams, I guess is the best way to put that. Both teams have looked pretty good, the past couple of weeks, especially New York now that they have Arc back. And Libero has looked especially good. I'm going to keep saying Libero to you guys, except that he's a good DPS. If you don't know that story, go watch Around the Payload from High Noon Podcast. But overall, it's hard to call. This is a really close game. So I went back and looked how they did last time, and that was a close game too. They went to game 5 with New York eventually taking it. But I am going to give it to Seoul in this one because the meta is better for them. They're on a hot streak, and last time they played New York, they full held them on Junkertown, and that has to be worth something. So I'm going to say they're going to take it 3-2.
So based on the fact that they full held on a map that is not known for defense, our boys are taking it home for the Dynasty. I like it. I like where you're going with that one. So at 8 p.m., finishing off Wednesday, we have Philadelphia Fusion taking on the Shanghai Dragons, who are looking to take home their first win. So Kinder, what do you have for this one?
I'm going to keep things short and sweet at the risk of making myself look like an idiot, because I have not been keeping up as well with my league as I should have. But you guys already know how this one's going. I think Fusion's still going to take it away from from Shanghai. Until Shanghai gets the changes through, gets new players in, gets new coaches, gets their entire thing shaken up, I don't think they're really going to have a chance against much of anybody. So, yeah, definitely Fusion for that one.
Yeah, I have a feeling it'll be for Overwatch. No, I mean, the triple tank at times for the Dragons has looked okay? Question mark?
I mean, you got to remember they don't have Dia either. That's one thing we didn't talk about. Dia's out for 2 weeks, and he's their best DPS.
Right. This being the second week, but the only, I mean, MG has looked fairly decent these past couple of weeks. He's been really one of the only bright spots, at least for me, for the Dragons. So I don't know. I don't think that's going to be enough. I still think the Fusion will 4-0 them. On Thursday we have Shanghai. Again, they played the last match. They played the first match. That happens, but guys, the Dragons' strength schedule, as I said earlier, does not get any easier, because at 4 p.m., the Shanghai Dragons are going, 6-on-6 with the New York Excelsior. I mean, it might feel like 6 versus 40 for the Dragons. I don't know. I don't know how math works. That could be how it is. But, it's really hard for me to talk about the Dragons and questioning how I need to word this. As you mentioned, Dia, he is absent from this team. I don't think they're going to have a good showing. Shanghai are going to come out with that triple tank strategy that, they have been practicing that hasn't worked that great. And Zebiolvi is just going to come in, he's going to farm his pulse bombs very quickly, going up against triple tank, and he's just going to tear them apart, I feel like. So, Dragons, I have a feeling they're not going to get a map win this week. I have it New York 4-0. And then at 6 p.m., we have the Florida Mayhem, hoping to bring the Mayhem against the Los Angeles Valiant. So, we got Logics, we got Soon, potential back caps. Spider, what you got?
All right, so the Mayhem's coming off their second win in the league,
Woo!
thanks to Dallas Fuel gifting them that. And the Valiant came off of 2 4-0s last week, one in their favor, one not in their favor. So, while we saw a very good looking Florida team against New York, they just barely beat a struggling Dallas team. And a lot of that falls on Logix. I mean, Logix, when he plays good, he's really good, but he hasn't shown that consistency. Last time, Valiant wrecked him. I mean, they just basically dumpstered him. I think this time, if the Mayhem can show up like they did last week, it will be closer, but I still think the Valiant's going to take it at, I'm going to give Mayhem the benefit and go 3-2.
I like it. I don't see it, but that's your prediction, not mine, and that will.
I mean, they did it to New York, so
your pick 'em rate.
Why can't they do it to the Valiant?
Because
like I said, Mayhem never really plays badly. They just, they get outplayed every now and then. If they can capitalize on mistakes, they can make something happen. I don't think that they're, honestly, if I'm dead honest with myself, I don't think they can pull it off. But there's a chance.
Okay, and Spider, to kind of go back to what you just said, so looking at sports, I'm not going to give you an exact reference to this, but in a lot of cases, there is, like, let's say you're on a shitty team. There are always going to be cases where you just have a team's number, so you play really good against one team, and then you don't play as good against lesser teams. That's just how it works sometimes. That could be the case with Mayhem, I don't know, but I'm just saying, like...
I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, you can go to NFL and look at numerous examples. That's why they say any given Sunday things can happen, and that's why I hope Florida is getting better. And you can't underestimate the power of Zappis being in the building, because we can see that once Zappis is in the building, they pull off a miraculous reverse sweep against the struggling Dallas.
Yeah.
But,
so
yeah,
to that,
I'm still picking Valiant 3-2. I want to be very clear with that, but I feel like we may see a closer to the Misfits level of play of Florida of what we expected going into Overwatch League, and not we're gonna have 5 guys carry this other guy and pretend like he's in a car, sideshow that we saw of Florida thus far.
Yeah, the Mayhem last week definitely had that flair for the dramatic with the Zappis intro, which was absolutely hilarious. But yeah, all right. So to finish off Thursday night for our game of the week, we have at 8 p.m. the Houston Outlaws taking on the recently surging LA Gladiators. So Kinder, how do you think this one is going to unfold?
All right, so last time they matched up, Outlaws beat them outright 4-0. But the Gladiators look really freaking amazing this past couple of weeks. So, honestly, to say who's going to win that one, the Gladiators look so good right now. I'm going to have to give it to them, but it's going to be close, I think. It's still 3-2. Outlaws, don't underestimate them, because they're not a bad team at all. And, they're not in the bottom rung or anything. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to say LA is going to bring it home, but Houston's not going to go down without a fight.
Well, only one of these teams has a Tracer player.
Actually, only one of these teams has multiple Tracer players.
that is also true. I'll leave it at that. You guys figure out which one I'm talking about, because I keep bringing it up. All right, so on Friday at 4 p.m., we have the Los Angeles Gladiators taking on the Florida Mayhem, and as I said, like, you have to give it to the Mayhem, despite the recent struggles, throughout the season. They're never down on themselves. Their resolve has really stood the test of time so far, and that win against LSU was absolutely massive for them. But the Gladiators, I feel like, at this moment, are the team to beat. If Tvik and Logix can continue to have solid show-ins collectively. Notice I said collectively, because there have been far too many weeks where one shows up and the other doesn't. They'll put in a better showing. If not, I don't think it'll be that competitive. So, looking at the tank line, I feel like Fisher is going to take that space away from Tvik and Logix. And I'll be honest, like, I have Gladiators taking this one 4-0 as well. As I see, Spider asking for the Houston, the free Mendo. It's not happening. At 6 p.m. They need the right tracer.
Well, yes.
I don't know if he is the right one or not. I don't know. But at 6 p.m., we have the London Spitfire taking on the San Francisco Shock. So, yeah, Shock, they beat the Fuel. Can they beat the Spitfire?
I mean, the Spitfire were beat by the Gladiators, so it's possible. But as long as the Spitfire doesn't fill the GC Busan roster and go with their lineup that actually wins games, I don't think the Shock really have a chance. Now, coming off of a win again, thanks to the Fuel, the Shock have shown that at least they can win games. But I feel like their front line is going to fall against London's front line. I mean, London's front line is pretty indomitable. So I really expect London to kind of dominate them and 4-0 them. Sorry, Shock.
Maybe Sinatra will turn things around. Probably
Maybe.
not.
I think I still stand by Future, or not Future. Super is the more important of the two, but I don't want to downplay Sinatra.
No, Sinatra will definitely have his moments, but Super opens up more of the possibilities for the team, I think, just in terms of the hero pool. All right, well, at 8 p.m. on Friday night, we have the LA Valiant taking on the Boston Uprising. So, two dive teams going head-to-head. Kinder, who do you think is going to get the better of this one?
That one's kind of a really tough one to call, honestly. Last time that they met, Boston took them out 4-0. But the thing is, Valiant seems to be, kind of a win-loss kind of team. They're somewhat consistent, whereas Boston, they'll go on streaks up and streaks down. They got four or five in a row won, then they got 4 lost, and then 2-1, then they'll lose. So, like, right now, they're not really on a streak. So I can't really even tell you where they're going to go. But it's just kind of up and down with them, and it's a really tough call. But I'm going to have to give it to Valiant. Valiant's been looking really good lately. They just seem a little bit tighter. You know what I mean? So I'm going to have to give it to Valiant, but probably probably 3-2 there would be my guess.
Then moving on to Saturday, the last day of the week at 1 p.m. Kicking things off, we have the Dallas Fuel taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. And, I don't want to keep saying the same things about Dallas. We know they're in a spiral. Fusion faltered to some of the top teams, but, this is a week where they could definitely rebound against, for lack of better terminology, lesser opponents in the Dragons and the Fuel. Fusion's dive has looked stronger of the two. Granted, Fuel really hasn't been running dive, despite having effect in Rascal, because AKM is doing his work on 76. To an extent. And I can see the Fuel taking Gibraltar in this one, so I have the Fusion taking this one 3-1. So I think, Fuel will win Met 4, otherwise Fusion will take the rest. At 3 p.m., again, so another huge match. This is going to be another a barn burner. I mean, this is a huge week for the Dynasty. And it's going to be tough, facing the other top teams in the league, so Dynasty taking on the London Spitfire. Spider, you swung towards a Dynasty favor on one end. What do you have for this one?
All right, so you talk about strength of schedule. This is like death week for Seoul. And this week, including this match, is going to have huge ramifications in the end of stage playoff picture. Last time Seoul played London, they struggled. I mean, I could say they struggled, but that's like an understatement. Seoul didn't even take a point on the map until the 4th map. So just think about that for a second. We're talking about the team that we have ranked number 1 in our power rankings, and they struggled that heavily against London. Kind of the same points I hit earlier, though. This meta favors Seoul a little better. Seoul's on a hot streak. But I'm going to go with London. I have, that performance last time was just so dominant that I have to go with London on this one. I think it's going to be much closer. I think it's going to be 3-2. But London just seems to have Seoul's number. And that actually predates Overwatch League. If you go back and look at, Apex, they struggled against Kongdu. They struggled against GC Busan as Lunatic High. So while, a lot of the pieces have changed since then, and obviously the practice structure has changed. I just feel like London has Seoul's like, key to the back door, and they just know how to counter everything Seoul's going to do before Seoul does it. So that's why I'm going to say 3-2.
Yeah, and even for me, like I too am leaning towards the Spitfire in this one. Not so much because they've kind of had their number. It's more so you look at the week for these two teams. Dynasty, they have two very tough matches. Spitfire, they face the Shock first. That's pretty much a given win. Another win for the record book. So that means, Spitfire, all of their preparation is going to be on this match against the Dynasty, and we've seen how good this team plays on the defense. And I think the Dynasty will have a little bit better of a showing in terms of their attacks, but when the Spitfire have that time to really adapt and really, try to approach the game for one specific series, that's when we really see the defense really come through and shine and really be probably the most dominant defense in the Overwatch League. So, I think the Spitfire will take it. Whether or not it goes to 5 games, I don't know, but I think the Spitfire will beat the Dynasty. Again, as much as it pains me to say that, but I think in the long run, the Dynasty might get the upper hand at the end of the day, just not this day. But finishing off the week at 5 p.m. Pacific time, we have the San Francisco Shock taking on the Houston Outlaws, and Kinder, you're wrapping this one up. Who do you think takes this one?
You're muted, buddy.
Yeah, you're muted. Doing it live.
Nope. I think things went boom. So
Mic check.
Oh, there we go. Hey, Kinder, you're back.
I don't know what happened there. Sorry about that, guys. All right. All right. So last time the Houston Outlaws and San Francisco met, Outlaws took it 3-1, and they've always been. It seems like the entire series they've been the two that have been kind of neck and neck. It's like one or the other. They're really hard to call, regardless. Houston historically has, for the most part, looked slightly better, and excuse me, San Francisco is fresh off of a losing streak. They got a couple of wins under the belt again now. It's really hard to tell. I think that I want to say that the Shock is on an upswing. I really do. I like the Shock. I like the guys on their team. So I'm going to give it to them. I don't think it's going to be a major sweep or anything. I think they're very evenly matched teams. Neither of them are top tier, or either of them are really low tier either. They're kind of like, clash in the middle, So yeah, I'm going to give it to the Shock there, just barely though.
Yeah, I feel like one of the Shock's win conditions are whether or not Sleepy can open up with a pick. That seems to be when Shock really start to gain that momentum and, really win those team fights. Whether or not that's going to happen against the Outlaws, I don't know. But, the Shock, they have Dante, they do have, he's not, I wouldn't consider him to be, one of the top 3 tracers in the league right now. Top 5 might be a bit of a stretch too. But Dante has consistently outplayed, at least on a tracer level, what we have seen from the Outlaws. So, we've had series with the Outlaws where that tracer duel has determined 2 wins, and then there's other games where, we see the anti-dive coming out from the Outlaws, and that works good. Other times it doesn't work at all, so I honestly have no idea what to expect from the Outlaws at this point, just because we've seen basically them throw everything on the table. And it works some games, doesn't work other games. Usually doesn't work against the better teams in the league, but the Shock aren't one of those teams, so, I would tip it in the Outlaws' favor for this one. But that being said, we have some absolutely monstrous matches this week. Dynasty have the toughest strength of schedule this week, so pay close attention to what Seoul is going to do, because, we could see them drop a few spots in their power rankings based off of how they fare here. But, guys, it is that time. We're going to go ahead and close out the show. So if you would like to show some support, one of the best ways to do that for the show is to give us a review over on iTunes or your podcasting app of choice. Any sort of feedback or constructive criticism is always welcomed, and that will offer us some insight on how we can make for a better listening experience for you. And I'm not going to beg people for reviews and do random scenes like I would on H&D, because, that was that. But, reviews do help in the long run. We do have t-shirts available for the podcast, and you can get those on Teespring at teespring.com/OWLN-show. We do have our Pick'em League, guys. We're doing stage prizes, end of season prizes. That is in full swing, and I gotta go through the stand-ins just so I can put Spider on the spot like I do every week. So this is like throughout the entire season. So in first place, Totem. I mean, I've been in first place pretty much all season. Spider shaking his head. I have 31,650 points. My soulmate Slambo is keeping it close. He has 31,000 points. And Spider is holding down third place, trying to make some moves like the fuel. He has 27,550. And then for stage 2, it's relatively close in one part. I'm on top with 11,900. Slambo is second with 11,300. So, that's 2 games difference at this point. And then Spider, you have 8,850 holding down third place. So
I made some bold moves like the fuel, and they paid off like the fuel. So moving forward, I am going to go back to the drawing board and just let my daughter take the picks from here on out, because maybe she'll do better than I will.
What I will say is, like, I have seen Spakey Hunter take an interesting approach, and that's where she only picks winners based off of what side of the match they're in. So, like, last week she picked, okay, I'm going to pick every team that appears on the left-hand side. And then this week she's doing all the right-hand side, and it's worked alright. I don't know if that's the route you want to take. I don't know, it's really throwing the dice. Who knows? But guys, there is a number of ways to reach us. So Spider, why don't you let people know where they can reach us over on the social media?
All right. So you can email the show at owlnshow@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at owlnshow. Our website is the same, www.owlnshow. We don't have our YouTube link yet, but you can search Overwatch League Network or OWLN Show on YouTube and find our channel there. Discord is discord.me/OWLN Show. Twitch, if you're watching right now, you know the Twitch, but if you're listening on audio, it is twitch.tv/OWLN Show. We do Overwatch League Network Mondays at 7 p.m. PST. We have our Tier 2 Contenders show, The Back Cap, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. PST. And then we also have our variety Overwatch show, Heroes Never Die, Thursdays at 5 p.m. PST. You can find myself on Twitter at SpiderGD, and my Twitch is twitch.tv/SpiderGD. You can find Slambo at SlamBoverwatch on Twitter, and his decrepit Twitch page is twitch.tv/Slambo. I mean, I'm a dad like him, so I know how hard it is to stream. What about you, Kinder? Where can they find you?
All right. Don't forget to go to www.fraggingout.com for all your Overwatch podcast needs. Also, twitch.tv/fraggingout, Twitter at fraggingoutpod, and discord.me/fraggingout.
I love it. And of course, you can find me over on Twitter at TimelyDrunkCTR. My Twitch page isn't seeing any action, guys. So, if I am streaming, it's probably, doing a podcast here. So there's that. But guys, that is going to do it for us again here on Overwatch League Network. Again, this has been episode 24, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. I wasn't here last week. If I got that wrong, whatever, it is what it is. But Kinder, thank you so much for being here tonight, man. It is always good sitting down and just talking some Overwatch with you. And if you guys haven't checked out Fragging Out, you don't know what you're missing out on. Go check it out. It's more of the not safe for work variety Overwatch podcast. I think that's safe to say, but you are sorely missing out if you haven't checked them out. Yeah, I mean, shit happens. But we will see you guys back here Wednesday night when I sit down with my new co-host for the back cap and talk some contenders with Ren. So be here Wednesday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. But for now, guys, that'll do it for us. Have a good night.
Good night.
Tater.
Thank you for listening to the Overwatch League Network. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at OWLN Show.
Kind of
The
stumbled
theme
a lot
music
over there.
for OWLN is the main theme and victory theme guitar remix by Michael Mack.